I wasn't supposed to be on the menu. I was the caterer's roommate in a borrowed dress, hiding in the garden with a paperback and zero intention of being chosen. Then the wolf looked up from the ballroom and smiled at me. The world narrowed to that single point of contact. His father was speaking, something about family, legacy, tradition, but Callie couldn't hear it over the roar of blood in her ears. She should look away, should break the connection, should remember she was nobody, nothing, completely wrong for whatever this was. But Antonio was looking at her like she'd just rewritten every rule he'd ever learned. And Callie realized, with dawning horror and something that might have been exhilaration, that she was in serious trouble. Because the wolf had found something he wanted. And wolves didn't let go. "That one," a woman whispered nearby, venom in her voice. "Who is that one in the red dress?" "Nobody," another answered. "She's nobody." But the way Antonio was staring suggested nobody had just become somebody whether she wanted to or not. The clock on the wall showed 11 o'clock. 1 hour until midnight. 1 hour until everything changed. Callie's hands trembled as she gripped her clutch purse, her mother's book pressed against her racing heart. All the best stories start with someone brave enough to leave home. Or foolish enough to stay. Callie couldn't breathe. Antonio's father was still speaking, words about legacy and honor, about the great tradition of bringing families together, about how tonight marked a new chapter for the Marchesi name. But none of it registered. Because Antonio hadn't looked away, hadn't moved, hadn't done anything except stand there, perfectly still, staring at her like she was the only person in a room of 200. His father noticed. The speech faltered, just for a heartbeat, and Giovanni Marchesi followed his son's gaze across the ballroom to where Callie was trying very hard to become invisible. The older man's expression turned to ice. "Antonio!" His father's voice cut through the music, through the murmur of the crowd. A command dressed as a name. Antonio blinked, the spell breaking. He turned to his father, said something too quiet for Callie to hear, and then, thank God, looked away. Callie exhaled. Her knees felt liquid. "We need to leave," she whispered to Sienna. "Right now. We can't. Not yet." Sienna's grip on her arm tightened. "Just wait until he makes the announcement. Then we'll slip out during the celebration. 5 more minutes." But 5 minutes felt like 5 hours when you were being hunted. Because that's what this was, Callie realized with crystalline clarity. She'd stumbled into a predator's territory, caught his attention, and now she was prey whether she'd signed up for it or not. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but every exit was watched, and running would only make her more visible. "Blend in," she told herself. "Disappear. You're good at disappearing." She forced her gaze down, studying the marble floor like it held the secrets of the universe. Forced her breathing to steady. Forced herself to become wallpaper, background noise, nobody worth noticing. It almost worked. "What?" Giovanni hissed in Italian, low enough that only Antonio could hear. "Are you doing?" "Nothing." Antonio's voice was steady, but his heart, traitor that it was, hammered against his ribs. "That girl is not on the list." "I'm aware." "Then stop looking at her like she's on the menu." His father's hand clamped on his shoulder, fingers digging in just shy of painful. "The Rossi girl. She's appropriate. Her family has Mediterranean shipping routes we need. Choose her." Antonio looked at Isabella Rossi, 24, beautiful, educated in Switzerland, perfectly groomed for exactly this role. She smiled at him from across the room, confident and knowing. She understood the game. She'd play her part flawlessly. She was everything he should want. She made him feel absolutely nothing. "I'll make my choice at midnight," Antonio said. "As planned." "Antonio, you said I could choose. Those were your words." He met his father's eyes, and for the first time in years, didn't flinch. "So let me choose." Giovanni's jaw worked. Around them, the crowd pretended not to notice the tension, but Antonio could feel their awareness, the shark sensing blood in the water, circling closer. "Don't embarrass this family," his father said finally. "I won't." Liar, Antonio thought. "Because the only thing I want to do right now is go back into that garden and find the girl who laughs at fairy tales." He descended from the platform, his father's disapproval burning between his shoulder blades. The crowd parted for him automatically. They always did. The wolf walking among sheep. But when he looked for the girl in red, the spot where she'd been standing was empty. She'd run. Of course she had. Antonio's lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close. "Smart girl. Bolt while you can." But then he caught movement through the far windows, a flash of red heading toward the east wing, away from the exits, away from the party. Toward the library. Not running, he realized. Hiding. The wolf in him stirred, eager and alive. Callie's heels clicked too loud on marble as she speed-walked away from the ballroom, from those eyes, from the weight of attention she'd never asked for. She just needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out how to leave without causing a scene. The corridor opened into a vast library that smelled like leather and old paper and everything Callie loved about the world. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, rolling ladders, a fireplace big enough to stand in. Under different circumstances, she might have cried at its beauty. Under these circumstances, she just needed a hiding place. She ducked behind a shelf of first editions, pressed her back against wood, and tried to slow her racing heart. Through the windows, she could see the garden, the fountain, the bench where she'd been reading, the oak tree near the east wall. The oak tree. Callie's eyes tracked its branches, calculating. Strong limbs, good spacing, and more importantly, freedom. The wall beyond it wasn't that high. If she could climb down without breaking an ankle, she could slip away before anyone noticed, before this night became any more complicated. Terrible plan. Callie spun. Antonio stood at the end of the aisle, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. How had he moved so quietly? How long had he been watching? "I don't know what you mean," she managed. "The tree. You're thinking of climbing down it." He tilted his head, studying her. "For the record, the oak looks sturdy, but the drop to the other side is 8 feet. You'd twist an ankle in those heels." "I'm not wearing heels." His gaze dropped to her bare feet, and something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe, or appreciation. "Even more dangerous, then. The stones are rough. Why do you care?" "I don't like seeing people hurt themselves." He moved closer, casual but purposeful, and Callie fought the urge to back away. "Especially not in my home." "Then let me leave through the front door." "You could do that." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could smell cedar and something darker underneath. "Or you could tell me why you're running." "I'm not running." "Callie." Her name again, low and intimate. "You've been running since you got here. I'm just trying to understand why." The honesty in his voice nearly undid her. This close, without the crowd and the performance, he seemed different. Younger, maybe. Less wolf, more man. More dangerous for it. "Because I don't belong here," she said, the truth spilling out before she could stop it. I didn't know what this party was. I didn't know about the selection, or your family, or any of it. My roommate brought me and I wanted an adventure. But this isn't the kind of adventure I meant. What kind did you mean? The safe kind. The kind in books. She gestured helplessly at the shelves around them. Where you can close the cover when it gets scary. Antonio's expression softened. Life doesn't work that way. I know. That's why I prefer books. Silence stretched between them, filled with the ticking of an unseen clock and the distant murmur of the party. Callie should leave. Should push past him and find Sienna and go home to her safe apartment where men like Antonio Marchesi only existed in novels. But her feet wouldn't move. What if, Antonio said carefully, you stayed? Why would I do that? Because I want you to. Simple words. Devastating honesty. Callie's breath caught. You don't even know me. I know you read fairy tales in gardens instead of competing for my attention. I know you'd rather climb down a tree than ask for help. I know you're the only person in that ballroom who looked at me like I'm human instead of a prize to be won. He took another step closer, and Callie's back hit the bookshelf. That's more than I know about any of those women my father wants me to choose from. Then don't choose them. I have to choose someone. Tonight. That's the deal. That's insane. That's my world. His hand came up, not touching her but bracketing her against the shelf, and Callie's pulse went wild. But for the first time in my life, I want to choose something I'm not supposed to have. The words hung between them, confession and proposition and danger all wrapped together. You're dangerous, Callie whispered. I am. This is dangerous. It is. I should leave. You should. But he didn't move back. Didn't give her space. Just looked at her with those dark, knowing eyes and said, But you won't. And damn him, damn her. He was right. Because standing there, trapped between Antonio Marchesi and a library shelf, feeling his heat and smelling his cedar smoke scent, Callie felt more alive than she had in 3 years. Since before her mother died. Since before she decided safety was better than risk. All the best stories start with someone brave enough to leave home. What if home was the cage? What if fear was the prison? What if adventure meant staying instead of running? One dance, Antonio said, his voice dropping to something rough and honest. Stay until midnight. Dance with me once. Then you can leave. I'll have someone drive you home, and you never have to see me again. Why would I do that? Because you want to. He said it like he could see straight through her defenses. Because you came here looking for an adventure, and I'm offering you one. What if I'm afraid? Then I'll be careful with you. His hand dropped, but he stayed close. Too close. One dance. Callie. What are you really afraid of? You, she thought. This. Feeling something after so long feeling nothing. But what came out was, what happens after the dance? Antonio's smile was slow, dangerous, devastating. That depends on you. They returned together, and the crowd noticed. Whispers rippled through the room like wind through grass, speculation and scandal and disbelief. Antonio didn't seem to care. He walked through them all like they were ghosts, his hand at the small of Callie's back, guiding her with proprietary ease. Sienna caught her eye from across the room, expression somewhere between horror and awe. Giovanni Marchesi's face had gone to stone, and Isabella Rossi watched with a smile that promised retribution. But Antonio only had eyes for Callie. The string quartet shifted into something slow and intimate, a waltz that belonged in a different century. Couples drifted to the floor, but everyone's attention was on Antonio as he led Callie to the center of the room. "I don't know how to waltz," she whispered, panic rising. "I do." His hand settled on her waist, warm through the thin silk. "Just follow my lead. Antonio. Trust me." And God help her, she did. His hand took hers, fingers interlacing, and Callie felt the strength in them. The controlled power of someone who could break things but chose gentleness. His other hand on her waist anchored her, guided her, and when he moved, she moved with him. 1 step. 2. 3. She stumbled, caught herself against his chest, felt his heart beating as fast as hers. "Sorry," she breathed. "Don't be." His voice was close to her ear, intimate enough that only she could hear. "You're doing perfectly." The lie made her smile. She stepped on his foot. He didn't flinch. "Why are you doing this?" she asked as they turned, the room spinning gold and shadow around them. "Because I want to." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." His hand tightened on her waist, drawing her closer. "You're not like them, Callie. You don't want anything from me." "How do you know?" "Because you keep trying to leave." The truth of it settled between them. Around them, the ballroom had faded, the watchers and whispers reduced to background noise. There was only the music, the movement, the dangerous intimacy of a man and woman dancing like they were the only two people who'd ever mattered. "You're not like them either," Callie said quietly. Antonio's step faltered. "Just for a moment." "What do you mean?" "You're performing, just like they are. Pretending to be something you're not." His expression shifted. Surprise, then something raw and unguarded. "And what am I really?" "I don't know yet." She met his eyes, brave in a way she didn't know she could be. "But I don't think you're just the wolf." Silence. Then, "Careful, Piccola Colomba. You're starting to see things that might get you hurt." "Is that a threat?" "A warning." But his hand on her waist was gentle, his expression almost tender. "My world isn't kind to people who see too much." "Then why let me see at all?" "Because..." He stopped. Started again. "Because I'm tired of being invisible to everyone who looks at me." The confession hit her chest like a fist. Because she understood. God, she understood. "I'm invisible to everyone who doesn't look," she whispered back. His eyes darkened. "I'm looking, Callie. And I see you." The music swelled toward its crescendo. The world spun. And Callie realized she'd made a terrible mistake, because one dance with Antonio Marchesi wasn't enough. Would never be enough. She was falling. And he was falling with her. The clock began its 12 chimes, and the music stopped. Antonio's hand remained on Callie's waist, her hand still in his, both of them frozen in the center of the ballroom like a photograph taken mid-breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," Giovanni's voice cut through the silence. "It is time for my son to make his choice." Reality crashed back. The spell broke. Callie pulled away, or tried to. Antonio's grip tightened, just for a second, reluctant to let her go. "Thank you for the dance," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Callie." "Goodbye, Antonio." She turned before he could stop her, before she could see his expression, before her treacherous heart could convince her to stay. The crowd parted, some confused, some smug, all of them watching her flight with too much interest. Sienna caught her at the edge of the room. "What did you do?" "Nothing. Everything." I don't know. Callie's hands were shaking. We need to leave. Now. The announcement. I don't care about the announcement. I need to go. Please. Something in her voice must have convinced Sienna, because her roommate nodded and steered her toward the exit. But Callie couldn't help it. She looked back. Antonio stood in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by beautiful women and dangerous men, his father's hand on his shoulder like a chain. He was looking at her. Only at her. And the expression on his face made her chest ache. Then Giovanni leaned in, said something sharp, and Antonio's mask snapped back into place. The wolf returned. Cold. Controlled. Untouchable. He turned toward Isabella Rossi. Callie didn't stay to see him make his choice. She pushed through the doors, into the foyer, out into the night where the air was cool and clean and didn't smell like cedar and broken promises. Come on, Sienna urged, pulling her toward the car. But Callie's feet stopped moving. Because standing between her and freedom was a line of security, and beyond them, that iron gate she'd noticed earlier. The one with the oak tree beside it. Her only other way out. Callie, what are you? But Callie was already moving. Not toward the car. Toward the garden. Toward the tree. Toward escape before she did something really stupid like go back inside and ask Antonio to choose her. She ran through the garden in bare feet, red dress flying behind her like a flag, and didn't stop until she reached the oak. I can do this, she thought, gripping the lowest branch. I've climbed trees before. I can. Planning to break your neck. Antonio's voice. Behind her. Of course. Callie didn't turn around. Go back to your party. Not until you come down from there. I'm not up yet. Don't. Why not? She finally looked at him, standing in the moonlight, his bow tie undone, his expression raw. You have a choice to make. Go make it. I did. He moved closer, hands raised like he was approaching something wild. The moment you walked into my garden. That's not. You can't. Callie's grip on the branch tightened. You don't even know me. Then let me. 3 words. Everything. Your father can rebuild whatever bridge I burn. Those women mean nothing. Antonio. 1 week. He stopped at the base of the tree, looking up at her with desperate honesty. Give me 1 week to show you my world. Then decide. If you still want to climb down this tree and disappear, I won't stop you. And if I want to disappear now? Pain flashed across his face. Then I'll help you over the wall and let you go. The choice stretched between them, safety or risk, hiding or living, the life she knew or the one she didn't. Callie looked at the branch in her hands, then at Antonio's upturned face. All the best stories start with someone brave enough to leave home. She jumped. Not over the wall. Down. Into his arms. Antonio caught her like he'd been waiting his whole life to do exactly that. Sure and solid and careful. His hands settled on her waist, supporting her weight, and when her feet touched ground, he didn't let go. 1 week, Callie heard herself say, breathless and terrified and more alive than she'd felt in years. Then I decide. Antonio's smile was devastating. 1 week. He lowered his head, slow enough that she could stop him, gentle enough that she didn't want to, and kissed her. It wasn't careful. It wasn't calculated. It was desperate and honest and tasted like champagne and cedar and the kind of mistake you make knowing you'll never regret it. Callie kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, his arms banding around her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space between them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Antonio pressed his forehead to hers. "I'll protect you," he promised. "From everything. Everyone. Who's going to protect me from you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. His laugh was rough, almost pained. "No one. Piccola Colomba. Not even me." Floods from the house, washing the garden in harsh white, and Giovanni Marchesi stood on the terrace with half the party behind him. His expression could have frozen hell. "Antonio," his father called, voice carrying across the grounds. "We need to talk. Now." Antonio's arms tightened around Callie. Not possessive, protective. "Stay behind me," he murmured. "Antonio. Trust me." He turned to face his father, keeping Callie partially shielded behind his body. The crowd on the terrace watched, some shocked, some amused. Isabella Rossi's face a mask of cold fury. Giovanni descended the steps like a king approaching a traitor. "What do you think you're doing?" "What you told me to do." Antonio's voice was steady, but Callie felt tension coiled in every muscle. "I'm choosing her." Disbelief and disgust. "She's nobody. She has no family, no connections, no use. She's mine." The words were simple, absolute. "That's all that matters. You would disgrace this family. Then I'll rebuild it." Antonio stepped forward, putting himself fully between his father and Callie. "I've done everything you asked. Taken every deal, made every sacrifice, become exactly what you wanted. But not this. Not her. She's mine, and I'm keeping her." Silence crashed down. Giovanni's face went through several colors before settling on icy calm, which somehow felt more dangerous. "You're making a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. She'll destroy you. Or save me." Antonio glanced back at Callie, and the look in his eyes made her chest tight. "Either way, I'm done choosing what's safe over what's real." Giovanni stared at his son for a long moment. Then at Callie, assessment and dismissal and something that might have been grudging respect. "1 week," the old man said finally. "She stays here, under our protection. You want to keep her, you prove she can survive in our world." "Done. And if she can't?" Giovanni's smile was knife-thin. "You let her go. If she wants to leave, I will." Antonio turned to Callie, extending his hand. "But that's her choice. Not yours." The ball was back in her court. Safety or risk. Running or staying. The life she knew or the one she didn't. Callie looked at Antonio's outstretched hand. At his father's cold eyes. At Sienna's pale face in the crowd. At Isabella's promised retribution. At the oak tree behind her, escape route still available. "What am I doing?" But she already knew. She'd known since the moment he caught her in the garden. Since the dance. Since the kiss that tasted like freedom and danger in equal measure. Callie took his hand. 1 week, she agreed. Then I decide. Antonio's fingers closed around hers, warm, strong, certain, and pulled her close. 1 week, he echoed. But as they walked back toward the house together, Callie caught Sienna's expression. Pale. Terrified. "Callie," her roommate mouthed across the distance. "You don't understand who he really is." Antonio's grip on her hand tightened. Not painful. Just. Present. Possessive. And Callie realized with crystal clarity, she just agreed to 7 days with a wolf. The only question was whether she'd survive them. Callie didn't wait to see if anyone noticed her slip out. Her heels dangled from two trembling fingers as she sprinted across the estate grounds, lungs burning, breath tearing in and out of her chest. The night air was sharp against her skin, heavy with the scent of roses and expensive cologne drifting from the ballroom behind her. The estate felt endless. Gardens, fountains, marble paths stretching like a maze designed to trap her. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not after the way Antonio looked at her. Like she was something he wanted, something he had already claimed. Her pulse thundered louder with every step. Stupid, stupid, stupid. She should never have come here. She should never have danced with him. She should never have let him close enough to make her forget who she was. She reached the iron gates and grabbed the cold bars, trying to steady her breath. She almost had them open when a hand closed around her wrist. He spun her around so fast her breath caught. Antonio stood there, chest rising and falling, expression fierce and unreadable in the dim light. "Why are you running?" His voice wasn't angry. It was worse, confused, wounded, urgent. Callie swallowed, her entire body trembling. She tried to yank her wrist free, but he held firm, not hurting her, just refusing to let her slip away. "Because," she forced the words past her tightening throat, "because you're dangerous." His brows pulled together, but she didn't give him time to speak. "Because this isn't my world. Because I don't belong here. Because I'm nobody and you're," her voice cracked, "you're everything I should stay away from." Antonio stared at her like she had just spoken a language he'd never heard. Rain didn't fall, but the air around them felt electric, storm-charged. 7 days. 7 nights in the wolf's den. By the end of the week, Callie will have to choose. Walk away with her heart intact, or stay and let Antonio Marchesi devour it whole. She thought the hardest part would be surviving his world. She was wrong. The hardest part is surviving him. Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more powerful stories.